6:39. We'll call the meeting to order. And, all right, so first of all, I'm just going to say I'm humbly stepping into the shoes of Chairman Mansour, so please apologize. I apologize in advance for any missteps. So with that, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Support.
Roll call vote. Member Hendrickson,
Aye.
Member Opsimer,
Yes.
and the chair votes aye as well. Next is the corrections approval and ratification of the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Support?
And a roll call vote. Member Hendrickson,
Yes.
Member Opsimer,
Yes.
and Chair Phil Foster votes aye as well. Do we have any communications?
Nope.
Seeing none, we'll go to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? Okay, then that moves us on to new business, and we have ZBA case number 21-08-25-1, 5680 Marsh LLC, 5680 Marsh Road, Hazlet, Michigan, 48840. Mr. Chapman, would you give us the background?
Yep. Good evening. So the applicant is requesting variances from section 866863D. The freestanding sign shall not be located within 20 feet of the intersection of access drives and the street right-of-way line. So the applicant intends to install a 25 square foot, 6 foot tall freestanding sign at 5680 Marsh Road. The property is approximately 0.3 acres in size and zone PO professional office. Currently on site, there's an existing 2,884 square foot office building that was constructed in 1985. There's 2 tenants that occupy the building, Eastside Tax and Accounting and State Farm. The applicant is looking to replace a freestanding sign that was destroyed in an accident earlier this year. This new sign will be exclusively for State Farm. Also to note, at this time there's no address shown on the proposed sign, and per our ordinance, 3 square feet needs to be added for the address. So section 866863D says that the freestanding sign shall not be located within 20 feet of the intersection of the access drive and street right-of-way line. The applicant is requesting to install the freestanding sign approximately 5 feet from the intersection of the access drive and the street right-of-way, therefore requesting a 15-foot variance.
Is the applicant here and would like to speak?
I'm here.
Please come up to the podium. State your name and provide your address for the record.
My name is Tom Johnson. The address is 5680 Marsh Road, Hazlet, Michigan.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
As indicated, I'm requesting a variance to replace a sign that was destroyed by an automobile accident. The sign is about 12 feet from the existing right-of-way towards the street, and there's 5 feet on either side of the sign as far as clearance from the driveway and the parking lot, and about 6 feet in towards the building from the parking lot. The actual sign that I'm requesting to replace was 50 inches by essentially 3 feet, and I'm only requesting that we replace that. It's only going to be about 12 square feet plus the address, which I'll have to add per the Department of Community Development. And one of the issues is site clearance and that sort of stuff. I do have pictures that represent the site clearance, and anybody coming into the driveway or going out of the driveway is well beyond the sign as far as the site clearance would be considered as a problem. The major problem is, as far as site clearance goes, is the utility pole that's right next to the driveway. But you're probably at least 10 feet beyond the outer edge of the sign when you come in or go out of the driveway. So I'd like the variance so I could replace the sign, if you please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. So is there anyone else who would like to speak on this matter? Seeing none, we'll go to board time. Any questions, comments the board members would like to make? Trustee Opsimer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This question is for staff. This seems like a fairly common variance request, just based on looking at neighboring sites, like the animal hospital clearly has a variance for this. And then going up to the eye doctor clinic that was built about 2 years ago, that would have needed a nearly identical, but possibly less than 10 feet variance. Is that true?
Yeah, so I think I didn't look up the animal hospital, but I'm assuming they had a variance.
It's
The eye doctor,
It's in like their bump out, just the same as this one is in the
Yeah.
bump out, and they're probably 40 feet away. The eye doctor is a setback a little bit further, but there's no way it's 20 feet.
yeah, they could have just refaced the existing sign. So if this sign weren't destroyed, he could have just refaced the sign and as is, and then it would have been fine. But since it was destroyed, that's why we're here.
Okay. So, but the property didn't have a variance previous?
No,
Because it would
no.
stay with the property, and he could have put the sign in. So the sign predates whatever the code of ordinance?
Yeah, yep,
Okay, thank you.
yep.
Any other questions? Member Hendrickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, in looking at this, I think that, to me, this variance request makes a lot of sense. We'll go through the criteria in a minute, but on its face, just looking at it from a logical perspective, I think the applicant, sums it up best in their response to criteria number 1, which is setback criteria would place this in the middle of the parking lot. He's right. There's really no other place for a sign on this property to go without having the solution be far more complicated. And so, we'll eventually start talking about, minimum actions to to rectify this situation. And this, to me, feels like a knockout. I'm sure I'm interested to see how the other board members feel about the criteria as we go through them, but generally, I feel like I will likely support this variance.
Any other questions or comments this time? I would agree with Member Hendrickson. I have one question for you, Mr. Johnson. Is the sign going in the exact same location?
It is, yes.
Okay.
And it'll be essentially the same dimensions. I just intend to replace what was there originally with the addition of the banner that gives the address of the property.
Okay. Well, I don't have any other questions for you, so if you'd like to take a seat while we go through our criteria, unless you have something else you'd like to add.
No?
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Andrew.
I do have a question for staff, which is, it was mentioned that this sign is, the old sign, and maybe you can correct me, I've got the information wrong, referenced both businesses that were present in that. Is that accurate?
I believe it was just for the east side. Oh, it was just for State Farm, the previous one?
Yeah, I'm looking at
Okay.
the Google.
The street view?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just State Farm, I can confirm.
Okay, excellent.
I can look at the old sign.
So I guess my future-looking question is, are we going to run into an issue down the road where the other business in this plaza is needing a sign as well? And how would we address that if we were to need to?
So they would essentially be able to add to this sign. That would be it within.
Do they require
That's-
a variance for that, or they would just be able to do that?
They would be able to reface it. Yeah, he could reface it if they needed to.
Okay, so
Yeah.
with the content neutral nature of the variance is you can put a sign
Yeah,
here.
it's just the sign and then- right.
But essentially what you're saying is that currently the layout, the design of the sign will have one thing on it.
Right.
And should at some point down the road they desire to put both businesses on there, they would essentially have to reface the sign with both of them on there. They couldn't add to the top of the sign or add
Right,
to the width.
keeping in the same dimensions that are
Got it.
there.
Okay. Thank you, that's helpful.
Just a follow-up question to that then. So that would have to be something they would work out with each other as far as the dimensions of the sign, or at least the size of the font that is placed on the sign if there were two businesses on it.
Correct, yeah. Yep.
All right.
Quick
Trustee
clarification though.
Osmer.
I don't believe they're maximizing the square footage of the sign, and they would have a variance, so they could build, rather than reface it if they wanted to, they could go up to the maximum square footage allowed for the face front, couldn't they?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct, yeah, sorry.
Like the animal hospital sign I'm just looking at is discernibly bigger, so I'm guessing they probably.
That might not be, like I said, they could have refaced an existing, which isn't in compliance. So they could go up to the 25 square feet, but anything over, they'd have to get a variance for.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Just a comment, if I may, I have no intention.
Oh. Mr. Johnson, if you have a comment, please.
Just a comment, if I may, I have no intentions of putting both businesses on that sign, just State Farm. So I can't see me doing that ever, actually.
Understood. Thank you for the information. Okay, unless we have any other questions, then we can go to the criteria. Does anybody want to take a stab at the criteria, or you want me to go through it?
Suppose I could start with number one.
Trustee Opsmer?
So, unique circumstances exist that are peculiar to the land or structures that are not applicable to other land or structures. So, particularly on these smaller parcels, older parcels, in these commercial areas, we find, we don't have that green belt out in front that allows for, flexibility in sign location. And so, as Member Hendrickson noted, there really is no other sign placement for the site that would not obstruct folks, and it is highly walkable. So it's important that motorists be able to, so I appreciate the applicant setting the sign back so that motorists don't have to be on the sidewalk in order to see and get visibility both ways on the roadway.
Okay.
I concur with what Trustee Optimer just laid out. With regard to criteria 2, the special circumstances are not self-created. I think that it speaks to the nature of the parcels and the size of those parcels that Trustee Optimer just referenced. They didn't make them the way they were. The sign placement probably came after the parking lot, and who knows how many tenants have been in and out since then. So I don't see any problem with saying that the special circumstances are not self-created in this case.
So I will go through 3, and strict interpretation and enforcement of the literal terms and provisions of this chapter would result in practical difficulties. Just going back to the comments that have previously been made as far as not being self-created, the location of the sign, having driven by the property and living in that area, I honestly did not know that there was a State Farm there. And so having a sign would definitely be an important part of making sure that you've got customers that know exactly where your location is. And I think the lack of having that there would ultimately result in people driving by it and not really knowing the location of your business. Number 4, are there any comments to number 3? Number 4, the alleged practical difficulties which will result from a failure to grant the variance would unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose. I would just echo what has previously been stated. I think having a sign there definitely will allow customers and business to come to the property. I think there is a matter of not being able to, not wanting your customers to drive by that property without knowing where it is. So I think not having a sign there would result in the practical difficulty and would unreasonably prevent you from using that for the permitted purpose. Anyone want to take number 5? I will keep going.
Sure, I'm happy to.
Okay.
So granting the variance is the minimum action that will make possible use of the land and the structure in a manner that is not contrary to public interest and will provide substantial justice. Yeah, I think that the placement of the sign as proposed is the variance request is putting the placement of the sign in an area that would create the most minimal impact to both the business and the surrounding, pedestrians and motorists. So I think this is indeed the minimal action we can take to provide substantial justice to the applicant.
Any comments? Number 6.
I will take number 6 real quick. Granting the variance will not adversely affect adjacent land or the essential character in the vicinity of the property. I would argue that it's actually consistent with the adjacent land, given the nature of these commercial parcels and just the way that downtown Hazlet was parceled. So I think it's fitting and consistent.
Any comments to okay. I will take number 7. The conditions pertaining to the land or structure are not so general or recurrent in nature as to make the formulation of a general regulations for such conditions practicable. I mean, I know we've gone through a lot of sign variances, but honestly, I think just the way this land is, and given the nature of the location of the building and the small green space as noted by Trustee Opsmer, I do not think that this is so general that, and recurrent, that we need to have a general regulation for this variance. Yes, Member Hendrickson.
I think that, we are already in the midst of taking a look at the sign ordinance as a part of one of the Planning Commission goals for 2021. I know that Director Schmidt is working on that with a subcommittee of the Planning Commission members as we speak. I think that this particular variance request, I don't recall having seen many of them, but to Trustee Opsmer's point from earlier, I think that should a similar circumstance occur where these signs are, destroyed or need to be replaced in a way that's more than simple refacing, we might see this as a recurring problem down the road. And so,
perhaps Mr. Chapman can take that back to Director Schmidt as, something to think about as the sign ordinance subcommittee continues their work, so that we can address some of these things before they become recurring problems.
Trustee Opsmer?
Yeah, I think to Member Hendrickson's point here, I think the intent of this provision might have been on Grand River Avenue, where you have that 20-foot green belt in front of most businesses along the corridor, and so you've got a wealth of possibilities in terms of sight lines and obstruction, and where do you put that sign, and some people will ask for a variance to the size of the monument sign on those locations due to the speed of the traffic, and some do get variances for it. Okemos Road would be another one where you have, pretty good setbacks and green belts in front of businesses. I don't know that this provision is actually necessary, so, I think this could be because there's such, for those properties where it can go away from the ingress and egress of the site, I trust the planning commission, the board, and staff can find a place to put the sign in those circumstances where there's a litany of options, so I think this could be repealed, to be honest, to your point.
Number 8, granting the variance will be generally consistent with public interest and the purposes and intent of this chapter. And honestly, I think trustee Opsimer just covered that with his answer. So any other comments that we'd like to make before we take this to a vote? Would someone like to make a motion? Member Hendrickson.
I move to approve the variance request in ZBA case number 21-08-25-1, 5680 Marsh Road LLC, 5680 Marsh Road, Hazlet, Michigan 48840.
Support?
Seconded by trustee Opsimer. Roll call vote. Member Hendrickson.
Yes.
Trustee Opsimer.
Yes.
And the chair, Field Foster, votes yes as well. Mr. Johnson, your variance has been approved. Is there any other business before the ZBA at this time? Public remarks? Seeing no one in the audience. Board member comments? Member Hendrickson.
Just want to applaud the chairs for standing in and doing an excellent job running the meeting, and wish a belated farewell to Member Kulhanek, who I did not get to say goodbye to before he left this body. So, if you're listening, Don, thank you, and we'll see you around sometime, hopefully. Though I won't know your face because we never got to see it.
COVID.
That's, I agree. I got back and so I would love to have met Member Kulhanek and to have seen his face. So if you are watching, you now, see us. If you see us out in public, please say hello. And with that, unless there are any other comments, the board is now adjourned.
All right.
That's it.
All right, so you just need to chair every meeting, and then we'll get the easiest CPA request that we can possibly get.
Something tells